Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely pumped to guide you through today's topic because, wow, we are looking at one of the most spectacular, chaotic, and frankly, cinematic corporate collapses in modern history. We're talking about the true story of John DeLorean's automotive empire. But we aren't stopping there. We are also going to investigate some incredibly strange internet rumors that have somehow attached themselves to this whole era. We're going to separate the wild, verified reality of drug stings and fraud from the bizarre, completely fabricated fictions of the internet. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. First, we'll unravel the massive DeLorean implosion, starting with the dream, the production disasters, and that infamous FBI sting. Then, we'll look at its unlikely Hollywood resurrection, before pivoting to investigate those mysterious Fabi and Delwaria rumors to see exactly what's fact and what's total fiction.
All right, Section 1, the DeLorean Dream.
To really grasp the magnitude of this fall, you kind of have to understand the height from which John Zachary DeLorean jumped. He wasn't some amateur tinkerer in a garage. He was a smooth-talking, brilliant former executive at General Motors, literally the youngest division chief in GM history. But he left that incredibly high-ranking job to do what no one had successfully done in half a century, start an entirely new American car company from scratch. And he didn't just want a fast car, he wanted what he called an ethical sports car. It was supposed to be rationally sized, durable, fuel-efficient, and safe, the ultimate post-crash era vehicle. But as we'll see, the grim reality of manufacturing was waiting just around the corner.
Now, things moved at an absolute breakneck pace, but that speed really hid a lot of underlying chaos. DMC was incorporated in 1975 and, against all logic, eventually found its home in a literal peat bog in Dunmurry, a suburb of Belfast in Northern Ireland. This was 1978, right during the height of the Troubles. The British government funneled roughly $120 million of taxpayer money into the project to create 2,600 jobs and ease sectarian violence. It was a beautiful, noble idea for sure, but the workforce, completely inexperienced.
Which leads us to Section 2, production disaster and fraud. And as we shift gears to the grim reality of manufacturing, you'll see in these modern borderless graphics we're pulling up just how rapidly things started to fall apart.
The reality on the assembly line was, honestly, an absolute disaster. The early production cars were embarrassingly shoddy. We're talking body panels that didn't align, weak alternators, and those famous gullwing doors? Yeah, they either stuck closed or just leaked in the rain. And get this detail. It perfectly captures the sheer scale of the quality failure. The dye from the floor mats actually rubbed off onto the driver's shoes. Imagine buying a luxury car and it ruins your shoes on the drive home. It was so bad that early models required up to 200 hours of rework before they could even be shipped to dealerships.
But wait, behind the scenes, an even darker financial reality was unfolding. Enter GPD Services, Inc. This was a classic shell company, registered in Panama, Geneva postal address, operated by the wife of a former racing driver, and utilized by DeLorean and Lotus founder Colin Chapman. No physical offices, zero real assets, just a piece of paper.
And into that paper company went a staggering £17.5 million. Let that sink in. This was British taxpayer funding meant to pay Lotus for engineering work to fix the car's design. Instead, poof, the money effectively vanished in a massive financial fraud, largely pocketed by executives. Taxpayer money meant for a struggling Belfast community, just lost in a complex paper maze.
Let's move to Section 3, the FBI cocaine sting.
So we've reached the climax of the real-world DeLorean saga. By late 1981, the company was hemorrhaging cash. They needed to sell 10 to 12,000 units to break even, but were moving maybe half that. By 1982, they had hit a total fatal financial wall. Facing imminent bankruptcy and a factory on the verge of being shut down by the British government, John DeLorean turned to some truly desperate measures. In October 1982, he was caught on videotape in an FBI sting operation agreeing to bankroll a massive drug trafficking deal. He was conspiring to smuggle $24 million worth of cocaine into the U.S. just to save his failing empire.
Now this brings up the central dilemma of his trial. Was it a criminal conspiracy to save his company, or FBI entrapment? Was he a willing criminal, or was he coerced? Well, his attorney successfully proved that undercover FBI agents, who initially posed as legitimate investors, had essentially coerced him into the deal. Because of that, DeLorean was completely acquitted on all charges. But, it just didn't matter for the business. Hours before his arrest, the British government announced the plant's closure. The scandal completely destroyed his reputation, and the company was dead, taking 2,500 jobs down with it.
Which brings us to Section 4, a movie star legacy.
It is incredibly ironic that this commercial and ethical nightmare was miraculously resurrected by Hollywood pop culture just 3 years after the factory went dark. The contrast is literally night and day. The real DMC-12 was heavy, unpainted stainless steel that showed every single fingerprint and took a sluggish 10.5 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour. But in 1985, Back to the Future immortalized it. Why? Because its eccentric, futuristic look was absolutely perfect for Doc Brown. Ford actually offered a massive pile of money to use a Mustang instead, and the producer famously shot that down, saying Doc Brown does not drive a Mustang. So the car nobody wanted in reality became arguably the most famous movie vehicle in cinema history.
All right, let's wrap up with Section 5, the Fabi Scandal Myth.
You'd think with a real-world story involving a brilliant executive, a peat bog factory, 17 million missing pounds, and an FBI cocaine sting, people wouldn't need to make things up, right? Well, the internet is a weird place. You might have seen terms like the Fabi scandal, the DeLorean Company, or an industry born of grief floating around in niche online car forums. We investigated these, and what we found is wild. There is absolutely zero historical connection to DeLorean. None. They are complete internet myths, probably stemming from creative writing prompts or AI hallucinations that just got repeated as fact.
So we have to separate the fake facts from the true story here. There is no DeLorean Company. That's totally made up. But there is a real person named Corrado Fabi, an Italian Formula One driver from that exact same early 1980s era. And he actually did have an industry born of grief.
While John DeLorean was destroying his career in a flashy drug sting, Corrado Fabi, the 1982 Formula 2 champion, was living a very different, very real story. After his father died, Fabi quietly stepped away from the glamour of international motorsport in 1984. He retired out of duty, out of grief, simply to take over his family's transport business and talcum powder mine.
Which brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with. The DeLorean saga absolutely proves that real history is wildly dramatic. But the true story of Corrado Fabi reminds us of something else. We so often immortalize the scandalous, noisy failures of people like DeLorean while completely overlooking the quiet, honorable, personal sacrifices made by others. It really makes you wonder, what other incredible true histories are hiding out there just waiting for us to uncover them? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and hey, always keep questioning the stories you hear.